Hello, everyone, to another exciting episode of this podcast. In this podcast, we will be discussing about how fintech is reshaping the financial world. To discuss about this topic, we have invited a guest to give us more insights. So let me introduce our guest speaker, Fahad. So he is regional head OrbisPay. So he has worked with different fintech companies to start their business and scale their business to new heights. So Fahad, can you introduce yourself to the audience about your background and your experience in the fintech industry?
Sure. Thank you, Zeva, for having me. Just to give you a background, so I started, my journey with OrbisPay as a design manager. My initial role was a design manager. I was inducted to lead product design primarily. But slowly and steadily, I got a chance to step up. And in past 3-4 years, as of now, I'm leading their Asian base. We have multiple offices in Asia, primarily in India, Pakistan, Nepal. I look after operations, I look after design, I look after corporate governance. Yep, this is pretty much it.
Okay, great. And can you also tell us about, other than Orbis Pay experience, like what are the other companies, fintech startups and large scale companies that you have worked previously?
Yeah, so coincidentally, when I stepped into the product design, uh, fintech became sort of a niche which I adopted. Um, why I'm saying coincidentally is because one after another I started joining fintech companies and I never left the domain. Initially, after leaving one of the best design studios I used to work for, I worked for EasyPaisa as a consultant, which is, I would say, the pioneers in digital banking in Pakistan, especially. Um, and apart from that, I worked with Garandas, I worked with PayPro, which is another fintech product in Pakistan. And then got a chance to work with Orbis. So yeah, past 5-6 years, I've been dedicated to the fintech industry.
Yeah, that is quite some experience in fintech. So my next question is, uh, as you know, like fintech is changing rapidly. So what are some of the most significant changes in the fintech industry in the past? Like recently, what are the most significant changes?
I mean, I would say as of now, there's a big competition going on between conventional banks and neo banks, which we also call as challenger banks. These challenger banks are generally the non-branched banks, right? So they don't have any franchisees. They primarily operate on digital platforms, and then this war is ongoing as of now. So these challenger banks are called challenger banks because they are challenging the conventional banking system. Um, and this transition is happening and it's real for the reason because as people get aware of it, as these digital banks tap into the market, they have been successful in gathering masses as their customer audience. Um, and as they truly realize the potential of digital banks, so that you see a major transition from conventional banking to neo banking. And obviously, there are reasons attached to it. And one of the prime reasons would be, I would say, jumping towards platform-based banking rather than branch banking. So generally, whenever you talk about conventional banks, they operate in a very organized structure, organized manner. They have some standard policies, rules, and then in terms of compliance, there are certain bylaws and regulations they have to follow when it comes to operating within a certain demographic area. Let's say in no matter wherever they operate, like in every country they have some standard regulatory authorities, whatever it is, could be state bank, could be the treasury, could be anything, and they have to follow certain guidelines in terms of compliance and regulations. But when it comes to neobanks, a lot of these regulations generally don't apply to them. maybe because they don't fulfill that criteria, right? So, and this comes as an ease for the customers as well, because if a bank, is following some strict guidelines, some strict regulations, compliances, it passes it on to the customer, right? And if a new bank, not bypassing, I would say, it doesn't fall into that criteria, generally that the same process is trickled down to the employees, to the internal employees as well as the external stakeholders, which are customers. So it becomes, the process gets easy, right? So there are reasons attached to it why challenger banks have been able to tap the masses, which conventional banks used to have or couldn't, right? A lot of the reasons, are linked to it as well. One of the primary would be, I would say, embedded finance. Like these challenger banks have become one-stop shop as well. You have an account, you can use the same account, you use the same debit card globally, you use the same digital account wherever you go. And I would say one of the prime reasons it has happened is because of innovation. In conventional banks, they innovate, but in a very different spectrum, right? They have to obtain certain, I would say, permissions, to even innovate one step ahead, right? But neobanks, they have been innovating like no other. Uh, Talking about QR payments, talking about different payment methods, talking about payment gateways. It was basically a loophole which conventional banks were lagging at, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that because the conventional bank, they have to follow like a lot of rules and regulation, and then obviously with conventional bank you have like greater limit and you have like different options. But with these neobanks, you have like, they also follow rules and regulation wherever they operate, but they have like certain limits as well. For instance, I'm using Vice in Malaysia. So once I in my wallet, like there was like 30,000 plus ringgit. So I immediately get a notification from Vice that withdraw the excess amount of 30,000. Otherwise, like in 1 week, your account will be banned. So similarly, with a lot of other different small wallets and neobanks, there are certain like restrictions. You cannot add like a lot of money in them. There are like a lot of other restrictions as well, but like with traditional bank there are like no restrictions in that sense. So I guess that's the main reason that these small banks do not have to follow a lot of regulations, and they are easy to scale. And other than that, I think one more major reason is that these small challenger bank have a very good IT team, and they are like spending a lot of money on IT rather than spending a lot of money on creating a lot of branches and a lot of other stuff. So yeah.
I mean, in terms of that, I would say, so primarily when I say the challenger banks have been challenging the conventional banking, obviously innovation, primarily in the technical side, is one of the main reasons. But I would say, you mentioned about the WISE use case. I mean, a lot of these digital banks, I would say they are off radar in a lot of demographics, right? So let's say there is a fintech product that's out there. It's available globally, but when it comes to following state regulations, country regulations, or being a license holder banking institution, they may have only a few licenses and to operate in different countries. Could be European Union, could be North American region, but apart from that, they may be operating everywhere else globally, because a global product has no limits, right? It has no boundaries, right? So they're operating globally everywhere. As soon as they come under a radar, let's say, if Malaysian state bank or whatsoever is the regulating authority realizes that they have some transactions coming in, some remittances coming in, and it's a substantial amount. So generally they come under radar when there is a bigger substantial amount that is either flowing in or flowing out, right? So that is where these banks or products come under radar, right? So, and then at that point, that is where the regulation authorities, they realize, we need to put some policies, we need to put some regulations, And that is where you get to see such notifications, right? Because that means that the government has started implementing or putting them under the radar as well, and started monitoring them as well. So it happens, but generally, you can't put a full stop on these products, because it's all digital money. They're not bypassing any rules, any policies. Yes, they open doors. They make it easy to launder money, I would say. But and there are rules. There are ways to tackle it, right? And countries have been doing it.
Yeah, you're right. And what you think about like how pandemic has affected the whole fintech industry, and what are the trends emerged from that? Because pandemic changed a lot of things, a lot of different businesses. So what's your take on that?
I would say this fintech boom actually rose to peak during pandemic. One of the reasons was because of the closure of conventional banks, their branches. I mean, you cannot physically visit banks and stuff like that. So, and also generally, irrespective to fintech, the global digital economy has increased post-pandemic and during pandemic as well. This is because obviously the digital audience has increased. People have started relying on digital systems, could be e-commerce, could be anything, right? So it has generally increased. So obviously that same impact has been followed in the fintech as well. And that is where people have started realizing that there are alternatives out there, right? Initially, that was not the case, but and people never need to explore because everything was working fine, right? But and fintech was generally a term that was outspoken among the Gen Z, right? But post pandemic, during pandemic, this the shift happened. People started realizing about the alternatives. They started shifting towards the alternatives. And generally, when there's a boom in e-commerce, there are very correlated industries attached to it as well, right? Let's say when it comes to e-commerce, you're talking about payment gateways, you're talking about payment methods, right? So that is where these fintech products got a sort of boom. They reached to a spike. Yeah, it had a major impact.
Yeah, I also believe that. And also like one more thing, that nowadays like even small, like as you mentioned, like neobanks, they are also providing like a lot of services. Like in Malaysia, like there's like Grab. It's like an app like Kareem or Uber, but they also have an online wallet, and then you can also buy something using Grab wallet on installment. And a lot of these small like challenger bank are providing these services, like buying something on installment. Maybe like a person who does not even have a bank in Malaysia, so he can easily create like a bank account in these small challenger banks, and then he can also like buy things on like refinancing. So but they have obviously very small limit, not like he can buy like a house or like a car, but like buying a mobile phone or like small stuff, laptop or stuff like that. But still like I think it is a great service.
100%. So so this was a deliberate move, I would say, or that come with it when it comes to fintech boom. And this is one of the perks which all these fintech companies have been, I would say, exaggerating about. Not exactly exaggerating. This is what the real fact is. But that is inclusiveness and catering the unbanked users. So what happens is, in every country, in every state, I mean, there are certain regulations each bank has to follow, and that those compliance requirements are to be followed by all conventional banks. There are certain ways or certain policies or regulations that halt the inclusion of a certain segment of the society, which cannot either utilize that part of the bank. They cannot become the part of that banking ecosystem. Um, and I'm saying inclusiveness is because a lot of people who have never relied on fintech products, neither they have ever relied on a conventional bank, have now shifted towards directly towards the fintech banks. Um, Now the reason is because fintech is opening a lot of doors. You're talking about BNPL, which is you can buy something and you can pay in installments. And BNPL is not just in this particular form. There are different forms of BNPL as well. So BNPL and such different varieties of products within the fintech industry have enabled a lot of consumers to step into this industry. They have become the gateways. When it comes to catering the unbanked users, we talk about the inclusiveness. The reason is because, as I said, certain regulations and compliances they don't let a certain part of the society to be part of the local banking network, and that certain segment could be the immigrants, could be people who are below the poverty line, people who don't have enough reserves, don't have enough capital to keep as a reserve. So that particular segment has never been able to be a part of a banking network. But neobanks, so because they have lower compliances, they have the ability to cater those part of the segment society as well. And this is the reason people who have never even part of a banking system or an ecosystem or network, they have stepped into this because of the fintech products. And one of the perks OrbisPay is offering, the benefits of why we exist in the market is exactly the same, catering the unbanked users. So let's say what OrbisPay does is we advance the wages, right? Now, obviously, we build up the credit history as well. We build up the credit scoring as well, and the same, I would say, abilities or capabilities within the banking network is away from a lot of people who reside maybe in the US, but they don't have the access to it, right? But we, as a neobank or a fintech product, we don't do this discrimination primarily because we don't have to follow certain regulations. And this is the reason we have been able to cater a lot of consumers who don't have even real bank accounts, right? So yeah, this is one of the biggest, by far, the benefits of this industry.
Speaking of the innovation, like what do you think how fintech is innovating the user experience?
So I would say for fintech products, it's pretty easy, right? Unlike conventional banks, right? One of the prime reasons is because fintechs basically rely on cloud platforms. They're digital products. They're not substantial products. You're talking about products that exist in a cloud network. Um, Now, why it's easy for them is because what we call as embedded finance is becoming now part of the conventional uh, e-commerce. We're talking about anything that has something to do with money. These fintech banks are now becoming part of those networks. Um, Now, let's talk about how the wallets work, right? Let's talk about the bill payments. Let's talk about utilities. Let's talk about a lot of stuff which people do on day-to-day basis, and they rely on different platforms to perform their transactions, right? But these neobanks, these fintech products, have made it quite easier. Uh, Putting a lot of stuff on one screen, putting a lot of stuff into one platform has obviously improved a lot of customer experience, has shortened the customer journey to be more productive and to utilize less time for a certain action. Um, Talking about wallet, let's say if you have a local banking neo banking app, or you use a local banking fintech product, you would be able to credit amount in it, hold that money, and utilize the same money in different channels, right? So let's say you put the same debit card in an e-commerce platform, you use the same mobile app fintech product, scan a QR code on, let's say, Starbucks. You use the same app to pay for the bills. You use the same app to perform certain actions, to pay for gas, to pay for a lot of stuff, right? So on day to day, when it comes to day to day activities, these fintech products have made things a lot easier. Now, what you used to perform using, let's say, 5 platforms, I would say 6, 7 years back, Now it's different, right? So it's a one-stop shop, right? So a lot of stuff can be done under one platform. So yeah, I mean, generally the customer experience. I mean, so there are two sides of customer experience. We're talking about customer journey as in customer experience. It has been reduced, but we talk about the real customer experience when we talk about how users use these platforms. So basically, customer experience has been improved a lot. Again, for the reason because for conventional banks, it's not easy. Um, single move within the platform has to be regulated by a lot of authorities, right? So plus, I don't know, for some reason that they are not that tech savvy, right? So these conventional banks, they have been left behind when it comes to innovation, technological innovation. And these fintech products, they're way ahead in terms of modern architecture, in terms of modern services, in terms of a lot of add-on products, right? So they're way ahead now as of now when it comes to in comparison between fintech products and conventional banking products.
Yeah. Like, I also believe that these traditional banks, because they are being operated like since 50 years, 100 years, or like 30 years, if they have to make a change, there is like a whole process. And then obviously they have like a team which is being hired like a long time ago. And all these like challenger banks, they are like hiring top talent. They are also like, even the CEO, they might be young, so they are more enthusiastic. They know more about this AI, new latest technologies. They are like, they're not afraid to pivot or make decisions based on the market trend, and they do not require much time. So yeah, I think that's the main reason. And but other than that, like, I believe like the traditional bank is also now, some of the banks are pivoting and changing their strategy, because I also worked on Kuwait Finance House bank system. And I was working with them. Like, we started the project from scratch, and I worked with them for like 2 years, and I was like leading the whole project from the back end side and architecture. So I remember like they include like a lot of things. Like it was like totally changed, like the previous version of the app, like the whole desktop environment, like the whole browser, everything, like, and the user experience, mobile. They included a lot of things because they know that obviously there are a lot of competitors now, so they have to level up, otherwise they will lose a lot of users. So yeah.
I mean, I would say they're left with no other option, right? So because the fintech products have pushed them this far that they need to innovate, and that too in a very steadfast manner. Um, and this is the reason. And I would say, I mean, if conventional banks at some point, try to pivot and try to acquire the same market which the fintech products have acquired, I mean, I would have to say, and I have to admit, it's not that difficult for them because they already have a substantial share of the market, right? So what they don't have is generally that segment which either they cannot cater because of the regulations, or the Gen Z who are basically not that comfortable with using some conventional products, right? So I mean, it's not that difficult for them to acquire that same market. But again, it's a matter of time until fintech products reach to a point where it's very difficult, or like close to impossible for conventional banks to reach there. If they want, they can, but obviously pivoting a large institution, pivoting a large platform, it's not that easy in comparison for any fintech company to pivot at any point. Plus, again, due to demographical regulations, they cannot offer certain services which, again, give an edge to the fintech products who operate globally and operate on a cloud network, right? So the difference is there among the foundational structure on the architecture side. But yet, I mean, I would say they can compete. But as of now, I mean, they're not close enough, but they can be at any point.
Yeah, you are right. And with that, what do you think is the role of green banking in the fintech industry?
I mean, so a lot of CSR initiatives. There, I mean, certain institutions and authorities. they have to follow a certain CSR initiatives. Just and in terms of general businesses, to make sure they follow, they fall into the same ESG initiative strategy, which is again environment, sustainability, and I would say conventional banking is far away from that, primarily because the use of paper is immense. It's not even, I mean, they're not even close to completely rely on digital platforms, rather fintechs. I mean, I would say they have gone paperless. I mean, conventional banking again. I'm not going to say that they haven't done anything or they haven't taken any initiatives. They're still trying for it. They're trying to be there. I mean, Standard Chartered is operating globally. I was just reading an article, and they have gone paperless to a certain extent. I mean, but again, there's a limit to it. There is a limit to which they can do and which they can do. Right. So I mean, for fintechs, I mean, if you promote fintechs, I mean, I would say you are promoting green economy because everything is digital, right? So there is nothing as hardware substantially object which they use or they perform actions on. But for conventional banks, I mean, they have been, I mean, it's a legacy system, so they have been relying on paper throughout their whole tenure. I mean, it's not that difficult again to innovate, but again, it's a matter of time until they do so. But yes, I mean, going paperless, taking CSR initiatives, just to make sure that as you grow, you improve the environment rather drastically, impacting it.
Yeah, because I also believe like the banks using paper, like for some reason there are like certain scenarios in which like they do not actually need it. Like they will fill the form, they will add everything in the system, and then again they will print that out and then just like get a signature, and then again like they like do a lot of paperwork, and a lot of them is unnecessary. But again, like as you mentioned, Standard Chartered, like I have a lot of friends who are working in Standard Chartered, so I know about that. Other than that, like HSBC, it is also paperless. Whatever you have to do, plus even if you have to deposit the cash, you just go to the ATM and then press deposit cash. There's like no banking, like you cannot, there's no paper involved, and everything is digital. Or in terms of a deposit, you can also like just use ATM machine. And yeah, so obviously there are a few banks, they are innovating and they are pivoting, and that's the main reason I would say like they are like still surviving and acquiring more customers in comparison to the banks who are still using the old conventional methods and following their old policies. So yeah.
100%. I mean, they need to innovate until they come under radar, because sort of global, these institutions, these environmental, companies who have been foundations who have been, working tirelessly to make sure that as we grow, we don't ruin the environment, we become more sustainable. So it's a matter of time. Basically, that's the whole point. Fintechs have forced, this industry to innovate. Maybe they
Yeah.
didn't plan to, but now they have to.
Yeah. And what is your take on embedded fintech and how useful it is? And is it worth incorporating embedded fintech into the whole banking industry and fintech? Like how it can be useful?
I mean, that's the whole point. If one of the perks why fintech products have been able to excel, in a very short span of time, is because again, having the scalability to expand, right? So, and when I say expand, it's not generally just expansion in terms of acquiring more customer base. It's generally expansion within the service offering, right? So let's say if you opt for a fintech product. You rely on a fintech product for your day-to-day operations, right? So your day-to-day activities. That the product needs to ensure that they become reliable, right? And the way they can become reliable is you can primarily rely on them for all sorts of activities, right? So if you're to switch to another platform, switch to another product for to perform a certain action, I mean, it shows, I mean, it may not be that reliable, right? So this is the whole race. This is the whole war. These fintech products are trying to become platforms, right? So what platform is, you have a platform that's a parent platform, and then there are child services, right? So we call as add-ons, and then these add-ons make your life easier because as they increase the service offerings, you become more reliable. The platform becomes more reliable, right? So for consumers, you increase the retention rates as well. So embedded finance is something that has been triggered because of fintech. So yeah, I would say that's the future. As many verticals a fintech product can step in, that is the whole success factor.
So, what do you think about the role of technology in the financial market? How technology is helping the financial market grow or tap the users who are not using the financial services before?
I mean, first thing first. I mean, technology has enabled fintech to establish and to expand. Um, I mean, and it is also becoming a gateway for the future expansion as well, because as each and every day with the digital economy is growing, right? So the digital penetration is growing at the same time, at the same frequency. You see the growth of consumer audience within the fintech industry as well, right? Because so fintech products are relying on technology to expand the consumer base, and as the consumer base within the digital industry grows, it goes proportionality. So because it's all about the awareness. Technology is becoming bringing the awareness, and with awareness comes the knowledge and understanding of how to utilize these fintech products.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And how are fintech helping in improving the financial resilience of their customers?
I mean, I would say that comes with the awareness and knowledge. I mean, as these fintech products are expanding, with their services, with their offerings, people are forced to learn. People are getting knowledge. I mean, knowledge is getting transferred, right? So these fintech products are enabling users, consumers, to rely on them, right? So and when there is, the reliance is there, obviously that opens up a lot of opportunities. So the biggest thing is, I mean, I would say the awareness, the transfer of knowledge and the awareness. So the purpose of fintech product is not just to establish a consumer, a large consumer audience, or to make a lot of money. It's the primary objective would be educating the users, educating the audience. And I would say that falls as a responsibility on each and every part of this industry, that includes conventional banking as well, right? So not just to offer services, it's more like just to educate and then offer what you think needs to be offered. You know.
Yeah, that is right. And what do you think about the future of fintech and what can be the possible revenue streams that they can add in the existing business model?
I mean, I would say the revenue streams already exist. I mean, they just need to innovate, and innovate. But they need to keep on improving and increasing their offerings. Talking about the future, I would say, the fintechs have already started pivoting towards Web 3.0 cryptocurrencies, offering payment gateways for crypto-based transactions, right? Tokenization, I would say. So, I mean, they're already moving towards that direction. It's just they need to establish, they need to make sure it's sustainable. And I would say the better or more impactful future is where the embedded finance steps in, right? So where the fintech products open doors for consumers, to be part of their day-to-day activities, the part of the day-to-day life. I mean, that is a much bigger impact because that is the only way to tap into the masses.
Yeah, so you mentioned about like cryptocurrency. So with cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then there are like a lot of altcoins. So it obviously have a lot of business opportunity. Plus, it has risk involved as well. So what do you think about that, like how it can help like investors, business owners?
I mean, I would say there's a very thin line between educating users and telling the users what only profits the business, right? So and we face this challenge on day-to-day basis, right? Whenever we make products, right? So it's at the end of the day, you need to be very fair with the consumer, right? So whatever information or knowledge you share should not only help you make more money, it should be more customer centric as well. I would say when it comes to cryptocurrencies, personally, it's my personal opinion. I may be wrong in this, but I believe it's not sustainable, or maybe it's before time. I would say, um, and so a lot of demographically, a lot of countries stepped into this pool, and they jumped in, and maybe sooner or later they realized maybe that was the wrong thing, or maybe the timing was not right. So I would say, I mean, even because obviously such products also fall under fintech industry. I mean, it's. I don't mean to say that they need to shut down their products. It's more like you need to do fair business. You need to make sure that whatever you're selling, you're conveying the right information to the consumer, not setting false hopes. And I would say very few of them are trying to be fair with the consumer. A lot of them are much more focused towards the capital market side.
Yeah, and I also heard about like one of the biggest exchange like just going down and like declaring that we are bankrupt, and also like with Binance as well. Like in few countries, like it was operating before, and as you have mentioned, maybe they do not have the license to operate, but still they are being operated. A lot of people are using it, and then suddenly like it is banned. So a lot of people have like thousands of dollars, like their whole life saving in the wallet, and they're trading, and then like all of the sudden, they wake up and they get to know like there's no app. So and then to redeem your money or to redeem your wallet, there's like a very lengthy process, and in some cases like you cannot get your money back. So what's your take on that? Like how to like actually prevent from that, or like is there no prevention from that? Like what's your take on that?
So I would say again that comes under the same thing. It's a highly volatile market, right? And you must have heard this thing like invest a certain amount of your whatever you want to invest, just a certain percentage into cryptocurrencies, which even if you lose, you don't doesn't hurt you, right? So, but my question is, was the statement was ever made by any product, right? No, right? So that is the thing, right? So people have received this, right? So have created this perception that it's a volatile market, so you need to invest a certain chunk. And even this is how the whole investing thing works, right? I mean, you don't put all eggs in one basket, right? So, but I would say none of these products ever claim this, or they haven't stated that this is so because it's a highly volatile market. So you only need to invest what you believe, even if you lose, won't make you bankrupt, right? But they never say, right? And so I would say again, it falls down to awareness. It falls down to knowledge, right? So even people who are exploring these markets, exploring these products, they need to be subject matter experts. Until unless you're not there, you shouldn't think about. Even I would say, think about investing a penny. Right. So, I mean, again, I would say at the end of the day, I mean, obviously, a certain responsibility falls on these these companies, these products, but not everything falls onto
Yeah.
them, right? So a lot of big role is being played by the consumers as well. So they need to be aware of, they should know what they are stepping into.
Yeah, you're right. And what do you think about a standard digital currency? Because as you know, like previously like US dollar was considered as the global currency, but now a lot of countries are doing trade in different currencies like Chinese, Russia. Like there are like different segments are now being created, and US dollar is like not that much powerful like it was used to be before still, but there are like a lot of confusion nowadays. So there are a lot of talks about like having a standard digital currency. It's not at like government level, but like in different like institutions and different like tech companies discussing about that. And what do you think about that? Like, is it possible or is it not possible, or is this something that can happen in the future?
It can happen, but I don't foresee that. The reason I would say is because a lot of economies operate based on the difference in the value, right? So let's say why Apple products are being assembled in China and why not in Texas, right? Because there's a difference, right? So that difference is running an economy. Um, a standard currency could be there. It could affect a certain segment, a certain part of trade. But I personally don't believe that it is gonna be set as a default across the globe, or a default trading currency across the globe. I don't foresee that because I believe that would in return bring I would say a huge demise to the whole economical system because this is not how it works, right? Because you better understand the Asian economies. A lot of them rely on these exchanges, right? And jumping to a standard currency, I don't think that's sustainable.
Yeah, you're right. And but like there's the point, like because if there is no digital standard currency, the thing is like obviously like US dollar is being managed by US, and previously like it was attached with the gold standard. So they can only print the amount of money, the US dollars, based on their gold reserves. But like in 1970s, they like remove the US dollar from gold standard. Now they can print how much they want, like and then because of that they are printing a lot of US dollars. There is an inflation wave and every country is being affected by that. So I think because of this reason, there can be a chance that like a lot of other countries and different people think about like creating that. But yeah, it is very difficult to create something. And then as you mentioned about like the difference in currency and everything, so that's the main thing that keeps the business going between different countries. So it can also impact negatively in few scenarios.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And with that, our podcast comes to an end. Thank you so much, Fahad, for joining us and sharing your valuable insight on the fintech industry.
No worries, man. Thank you for having me.